There's a harsh truth about business that most visionaries don't understand. Passion doesn't pay the light bill. Infrastructure does. You can have the greatest brand in the world, the best marketing, and the most loyal customers, but if you don't actually own the building and the equipment, you don't own a business. You just own a hobby. I had to teach my wife that lesson the hard way. My name's David. I'm 37 years old, and I'm a certified public accountant, CPA. 6 years ago, I married Sarah. Sarah was a personal trainer with a massive local Instagram following. She was charismatic, incredibly fit, and completely obsessed with the wellness industry. Her dream was to open a boutique, high-end fitness and cycling studio. She had the vision, but she had absolutely no credit and no capital. I loved her, and I believed in her, so I became her bank. I took out a $250,000 small business loan. I negotiated the commercial lease for a beautiful 5,000 square foot warehouse downtown. I bought the state-of-the-art spin bikes, the squat racks, the imported rubber flooring, and the sound system. I handled all the payroll, the taxes, and the back-end infrastructure, while Sarah was the face of the brand. For 3 years, the studio was a massive success. It became the hottest spot in the city for wealthy clients. But as the studio's profile grew, Sarah's ego grew right along with it. And soon, there wasn't enough room in our business or our marriage for the guy who actually paid for it all.
The shift started when Sarah hired a new head coach named Chad. Chad was 28, built like a Greek god, and possessed the kind of unearned arrogance that only comes from staring at yourself in a mirror all day. He constantly posted shirtless selfies with motivational quotes and called everyone bro. Suddenly, Sarah and Chad were inseparable. They were constantly filming workout content together for social media. The red flags started appearing in the balance sheets and in her behavior. First, the disrespect. Sarah started treating me like a glorified janitor in front of the staff. If I came into the studio to fix a broken Wi-Fi router or drop off payroll checks, she would roll her eyes. "David, please don't interrupt the vibe," she'd say. "Chad and I are trying to cultivate an elite aesthetic here. You're killing the energy." Second, the financial freeze-out. As the CPA, I managed the QuickBooks. But one Monday, I found out I was locked out of the studio's main operating bank account. When I asked Sarah about it, she got incredibly defensive. "Chad said we need to modernize our banking. I moved it to a new platform. Stop trying to control my business, David." Her business. That's what it had become. Third, the late nights. She started staying at the studio until 1 a.m., claiming she and Chad were programming the new 12-week bootcamp. I didn't argue. I just went to my computer and did what an accountant does best. I started auditing my own life.
Sarah changed her phone password, but she forgot one crucial piece of hardware. She managed the studio's Instagram account on an iPad we kept locked in the manager's office. Because I was the IT guy, I had the master passcode to the iPad. One night, after hours, I went to the studio to do a server backup. I opened the iPad. She had left her Instagram direct messages open. There was a massive chat thread between her and Chad. I didn't just find out they were sleeping together. I found a premeditated corporate assassination plot. Chad wrote, "The lawyer said it's easy. You just stop paying the vendor bills and let the current LLC go bankrupt. Since David's name is on the original business loan, the bank goes after him, not you. Then we transfer the client email list to my new LLC, do a massive rebranding launch, and reopen the gym under my name. We get the business, he gets the $250K debt. We'll be unstoppable, baby." Sarah replied, "You're so smart. I can't wait to drop him. He's such a boring numbers guy. He doesn't understand the fitness industry at all. Let's do the grand reopening party on the 15th. I'll serve him with divorce papers the morning after." I stood in the dark, empty gym. surrounded by the $250,000 worth of equipment I had bought. My wife and her meathead boyfriend were planning to bankrupt the company, steal the client list, and leave me with a $250,000 anchor tied around my neck. They thought because I was a boring numbers guy, I wouldn't see it coming. But numbers guys read the fine print, and Sarah never did.
If someone tries to push you out of a moving car, you don't fight them for the steering wheel, you just unhitch the trailer. When we started the business, Sarah wanted to be the CEO of the operating LLC. I agreed, but to protect our assets, I had structured the financing very carefully. The $250,000 business loan wasn't in the gym's name, it was in the name of my personal holding company. My holding company bought all the equipment, the treadmills, the weights, the mirrors, and formally leased them to Sarah's Gym LLC. Furthermore, the commercial lease for the building was also in my holding company's name, which I subleased to her gym. I checked the ledgers. Just as Chad had suggested, Sarah had stopped paying the monthly equipment lease and rent to my holding company to drain the operating account. She was legally in default. I didn't scream, I didn't confront her, I just smiled, asked how the new programming was going, and told her I was going out of town for a CPA conference the week of her big rebranding. She was ecstatic. She thought the coast was clear. She started hyping up the grand reopening and rebranding party on social media. She invited 150 VIP clients. They were going to serve champagne, announce Chad as the new co-owner, and unveil the new logo. I decided to provide the entertainment. I went to my commercial real estate lawyer. I showed him the default on the sublease and the unpaid equipment invoices. "She is 60 days past due, David," my lawyer said. "Under the terms of the commercial sublease and the equipment rental agreement, you have the absolute right to execute an immediate eviction and repossess 100% of the chattels. No court order needed. The property belongs to your holding company." I hired a specialized commercial repossession firm. I didn't hire 2 guys in a van. I hired a crew of 20 massive professional movers and a fleet of 5 18-wheeler box trucks. I also contacted the local police precinct and arranged for a civil standby. When you're repossessing a $250,000 worth of equipment from an occupied building, people tend to get violent. I wanted badges on the scene. Sarah and Chad spent the week decorating the studio, buying expensive balloon arches, and pre-selling $20,000 worth of memberships for the new gym, depositing the cash directly into Chad's new bank account. They were selling tickets to a cruise ship they didn't own, and I was about to pull the plug on the ocean. The grand reopening party started at 7 p.m. on a Friday. The studio was packed. There was a DJ, catered food, and 150 wealthy clients in designer activewear. Sarah and Chad were standing on the main stage, holding microphones, getting ready to make their big announcement. At exactly 7:15 p.m., a police cruiser pulled up to the front doors, lights flashing. Right behind it, 5 massive white box trucks backed into the parking lot. I walked through the front doors, flanked by 2 police officers and 20 burly men holding dollies and power drills. The music stopped. The crowd parted. Sarah saw me, her jaw dropping. "David?" she stammered into the microphone. "What are you doing here? I thought you were at a conference." I walked right up to the stage. I didn't have a microphone, but I didn't need one.
Sarah's operating LLC is currently in default on its lease and equipment financing, I announced loudly to the confused crowd. I turned to the foreman of the moving crew. Take everything, down to the rubber mats. Chad jumped off the stage, his face turning red. Whoa, bro, you can't do this. This is our gym. Get out of here before I make you leave. One of the police officers stepped right in front of Chad, resting his hand on his belt. Sir, Mr. Last Name is the legal owner of this property and everything in it. If you interfere with a lawful commercial repossession, you will be arrested for obstruction. Chad froze, completely emasculated in front of his entire client base. It was a symphony of destruction. The movers were incredibly fast. They unplugged the DJ booth. They rolled out the $3,000 spin bikes. They unbolted the squat racks. They literally unscrewed the massive wall mirrors. Sarah was sobbing hysterically, begging me to stop. David, please, you're ruining me. These are my clients. You ruined yourself, Sarah, I said calmly. You should have checked who owned the building before you tried to steal it. Within 90 minutes, the 5,000 square foot luxury fitness studio was reduced to an empty, echoing concrete box.
The fallout was an absolute massacre. The 150 clients who were standing in the empty room immediately realized they had just bought memberships to a gym that no longer existed. They swarmed Sarah and Chad, screaming for refunds. Because Chad had deposited the pre-sale money into his new LLC's account, he was hit with massive credit card chargebacks. The merchant processors flagged his account for fraud, froze his funds, and permanently banned him. He was financially ruined in 48 hours. Without the equipment or the building, Sarah's original LLC was completely worthless. But because I had legally repossessed the assets to settle her debt to my holding company, I was made entirely whole. I sold the $250,000 worth of equipment to a rival fitness chain across town for a small profit. I terminated the building lease without penalty. During the divorce, Sarah had absolutely nothing to leverage. Her reputation in the local fitness industry was completely vaporized. Everyone knew she tried to scam her husband and ended up getting her entire gym repossessed on opening night. Chad dumped her a week later. He didn't want a business partner who came with no equipment and a mountain of angry clients.
It's been 2 years since that night. I'm doing better than ever. I expanded my accounting firm, and I now specialize in helping small business owners properly structure their LLCs to protect themselves from hostile takeovers. I bought a house with a home gym, and I work out in peace. Last I heard, Sarah is working as a shift manager at a corporate big box gym. She has to wear a uniform, clock in at 5 a.m., and she doesn't own a single piece of the equipment she wipes down every day. If there is a lesson to be learned here, it's this. Never mistake the face of the company for the brain of the operation. If you build a castle for someone, make sure your name is on the deed to the land. And if they ever try to lock you out of your own fortress, don't bother knocking on the door. Just bring in the trucks, take back your bricks, and let them try to rule over an empty plot of dirt. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what's the worst business partner you've ever had? Stay smart and always read the fine print.